Priya Mehta scrolled through the endless stream of profiles on IndianMatrimony.com from her small bedroom in Mumbai's Bandra East neighborhood. At 26, she felt the mounting pressure from her family to find a suitable husband. Her father, a retired bank manager, and her mother, a homemaker who spent her evenings watching Hindi serials, had grown increasingly anxious about their daughter's single status. In their middle-class Gujarati household, marriage wasn't just a personal choice. It was a family milestone that determined social standing within their tight-knit community. The apartment buzzed with the familiar sounds of evening life in Mumbai. Traffic horns blared from the street below, while the neighbor's television played the latest Bollywood soundtrack. Priya's mother, Sunita, periodically knocked on her door, offering chai and gentle reminders about good families that had inquired about meetings. Each conversation ended with the same refrain: "Beta, you're getting older. The best proposals won't wait forever." Priya understood the cultural expectations. Unlike her American-educated cousin, who had shocked the family by dating openly, Priya respected the traditional path. She wanted a partner who could bridge her conservative upbringing with her dreams of independence. Working as a software developer at a mid-sized IT firm, she earned enough to contribute to household expenses, but not enough to challenge the assumption that marriage would provide the security her parents sought for her future. The matrimonial app offered hope wrapped in modern convenience. Instead of awkward family introductions and formal meetings in living rooms, she could browse profiles privately, filtering by education, location, and career. Most importantly, she could connect with Indian men living abroad, specifically in America, where opportunities seemed limitless and traditional values could coexist with professional ambition. That Tuesday evening, one profile stopped her endless scrolling. Raj Patel's page appeared meticulously crafted. The main photograph showed him standing confidently outside what appeared to be a corporate office building in downtown Chicago. He wore a navy blue blazer over a crisp white shirt, his smile warm but professional. Secondary photos revealed glimpses of an upscale lifestyle: dinner at an elegant restaurant, a weekend trip to Niagara Falls, and a group shot at what looked like a Diwali celebration in a beautifully decorated community center. His written profile struck the perfect balance between ambition and humility. Raj described himself as a senior software engineer at a Fortune 500 technology company, emphasizing his commitment to both career growth and family values. He wrote about missing home-cooked Gujarati food and dreaming of sharing Indian festivals with a life partner who understood the importance of maintaining cultural roots while embracing American opportunities. The text mentioned his desire to sponsor his future wife's immigration to the United States, offering a pathway to the American dream that so many young Indians coveted. What impressed Priya most was the specificity of his achievements. Unlike vague profiles that mentioned good job or settled abroad, Raj provided concrete details. He listed his alma mater, Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, and mentioned his current salary range, which was substantial even by American standards. He discussed his apartment in Lincoln Park, a neighborhood Priya had researched online and discovered was one of Chicago's most desirable areas. The cultural elements felt authentic rather than performative. Raj wrote about attending temple regularly, supporting his parents financially, and maintaining friendships within Chicago's vibrant Gujarati community. He shared photos from a recent visit to India, showing him touching his grandmother's feet in a traditional gesture of respect. For Priya's parents, these images would demonstrate that success in America hadn't eroded his fundamental values. Priya spent hours analyzing every detail. She zoomed in on his photographs, looking for inconsistencies or signs of deception that her more cynical friends had warned her about. The backgrounds appeared genuine: real offices, actual restaurants, authentic-looking social gatherings. His smile seemed natural, not forced or rehearsed. Even his casual photos, like one taken during a morning jog along Lake Michigan, felt spontaneous rather than staged. When she finally decided to send a message, Priya crafted her response carefully. She mentioned their shared Gujarati heritage, her own career in technology, and her dreams of experiencing life in America while maintaining strong family connections. She avoided appearing too eager while expressing genuine interest in learning more about his journey from IIT Delhi to corporate success in Chicago. Raj's response arrived within hours, a promising sign that he was serious about finding a partner. His message was thoughtful and detailed, asking specific questions about her work, her family, and her own dreams of life abroad. He didn't rush toward personal topics or make inappropriate comments about her appearance. Instead, he focused on compatibility, shared values, and practical considerations about marriage and immigration. As their digital correspondence evolved over the following days, Priya felt increasingly optimistic. Raj's messages arrived consistently, usually in the evening Chicago time, which aligned with early morning in Mumbai. He shared stories about his daily life, photos of Chicago's changing seasons, and thoughtful observations about balancing Indian identity with American integration. Each interaction reinforced the image of a stable, successful man who had achieved the kind of life Priya had only dreamed about. Her parents, initially skeptical about online matrimonial connections, became enthusiastic supporters after reviewing Raj's profile. Her father was particularly impressed by the IIT credentials and the corporate position. Her mother loved the photos, showing Raj's respect for elders and participation in religious festivals. Within their social circle, having a daughter marry into the American diaspora would elevate the family's status significantly. The virtual courtship felt different from the formal chaperone meetings that characterized traditional arranged marriages. Priya could express her personality, share her ambitions, and develop genuine affection for this man who seemed to represent everything she wanted in a life partner. Raj appeared to understand her desire for independence while respecting the cultural framework that had shaped her values. After 3 weeks of daily messaging, Raj suggested a video call. The technology would allow them to move beyond text and photographs, creating a more authentic connection before making serious commitments. For Priya, this represented a crucial step toward determining whether their digital chemistry could translate into real compatibility. She agreed eagerly, setting the stage for what she hoped would be the beginning of her American dream. The first video call exceeded Priya's expectations in every possible way. Raj appeared exactly as his photographs had promised: handsome, well-groomed, and articulate. His apartment background showcased modern furniture and tasteful decorations that confirmed his financial stability. When he spoke, his English carried the slight American accent that many successful immigrants developed, yet he switched effortlessly to fluent Gujarati when discussing family matters or cultural traditions. During their 90-minute conversation, Raj demonstrated remarkable attentiveness to Priya's responses. He asked thoughtful questions about her work developing mobile applications, showing genuine interest in her technical skills, rather than dismissing them as temporary career distractions before marriage. When she mentioned her dream of pursuing advanced certifications in cloud computing, he enthusiastically described Chicago's thriving technology sector and the opportunities available for skilled professionals like herself. The cultural compatibility felt seamless. Raj spoke passionately about maintaining Gujarati traditions in America, describing elaborate Navratri celebrations in Chicago's Devon Avenue neighborhood and weekly dinners with other immigrant families from their home state. He showed Priya photos on his phone of recent community gatherings, colorful festivals where men wore traditional kurtas and women dressed in beautiful chaniya cholis, recreating the vibrant atmosphere of celebrations back home. What impressed Priya most was Raj's respect for her parents' concerns and expectations. Unlike some American settled men who viewed Indian family involvement as outdated interference, Raj welcomed the traditional process. He suggested formal video introductions with both sets of parents and offered to provide employment verification documents to demonstrate his financial stability. His willingness to embrace customary procedures reassured Priya that marriage wouldn't require abandoning the family relationships that anchored her identity. Their daily video calls became the highlight of Priya's routine. She would rush home from work, quickly prepare dinner for her parents, then retreat to her bedroom for hours of conversation with Raj. They discussed everything from Bollywood movies to American politics, from childhood memories in India to professional aspirations in their respective technology careers. The intellectual connection complemented their obvious physical attraction, creating the foundation for what felt like genuine love rather than mere matrimonial convenience. Raj's descriptions of American life painted an appealing picture of opportunity combined with cultural preservation. He lived in a diverse neighborhood where Indian grocery stores, temples, and restaurants allowed immigrants to maintain their heritage while embracing new experiences. He spoke about weekend trips to museums, concerts, and natural attractions that showcased America's vast cultural and geographic diversity. For Priya, who had never traveled outside India, these stories represented adventure and growth that seemed impossible within Mumbai's limitations. The immigration process became a frequent topic of discussion. Raj explained the steps required for spousal visa applications, estimating timelines and describing the documentation needed. His familiarity with immigration procedures suggested experience and preparation, qualities that reassured Priya about the practical aspects of international marriage. He offered to handle most paperwork himself, using his American legal and financial resources to expedite the process. After 6 weeks of intensive digital courtship, both families agreed that formal engagement preparations should begin. Priya's parents were thoroughly convinced by Raj's credentials, his respectful communication style, and his obvious affection for their daughter. They appreciated his tradition of sending small gifts through international courier services, premium Indian sweets for festivals, elegant jewelry for Priya, and thoughtful items that demonstrated cultural awareness and financial generosity. Raj's parents, whom Priya met through video calls, appeared equally enthusiastic about the match. His father, a retired engineer who had immigrated to America in the 1980s, shared stories about building successful careers while maintaining strong family bonds. His mother, who had learned to navigate American society while preserving Indian customs, offered maternal guidance about adapting to life abroad. Their Chicago home, visible during video tours, reflected comfortable middle-class prosperity earned through decades of hard work and smart financial decisions. The engagement ceremony was planned as a hybrid celebration, combining traditional rituals performed simultaneously in Mumbai and Chicago. Modern technology would allow both families to participate in real time, creating shared memories despite geographic separation. Priya found the innovative approach romantic and practical, demonstrating how successfully contemporary Indian families could blend ancient customs with modern realities. Shopping for the engagement became an exciting family affair. Priya's mother accompanied her to Mumbai's most prestigious jewelry stores, selecting traditional gold sets that would be appropriate for an American-based Gujarati family. They chose elegant saris that would photograph beautifully during video ceremonies and selected gifts for Raj's family that demonstrated their cultural sophistication and economic respectability. During this period, Raj's behavior remained consistently supportive and romantic. He sent flowers for special occasions, arranged surprise video calls with Chicago-based Gujarati musicians who performed traditional songs, and coordinated with local Mumbai services to deliver her favorite foods during late-night conversations. These gestures felt genuine rather than calculated, reinforcing Priya's growing conviction that she had found the ideal life partner. The legal preparations proceeded smoothly. Raj provided employment letters, tax documentation, and bank statements that confirmed his financial claims. His company's human resources department issued verification letters for the visa application process. Everything appeared properly documented and legitimate, meeting the stringent requirements that American immigration authorities imposed on marriage-based visa petitions. As the engagement date approached, Priya experienced a mixture of excitement and nervousness typical for any bride-to-be. The magnitude of her decision, leaving India, family, and career to build a new life in America, felt overwhelming yet thrilling. Her friends alternated between envy and concern, celebrating her achievement while warning about the challenges of international marriage and cultural adaptation. Raj seemed to understand her emotional complexity. During their conversations, he acknowledged the sacrifice she was making and promised to provide the support needed for successful transition. He described his plans for helping her establish professional credentials in America, find meaningful employment, and build friendships within Chicago's Indian community. His thoughtfulness about practical details reinforced her confidence in their partnership. The night before their formal engagement ceremony, Priya lay awake, thinking about the journey that had brought her to this moment. From casual browsing on a matrimonial website to preparing for marriage with a man she had met only through digital interactions, the entire experience felt surreal yet perfectly natural. Technology had enabled a courtship that honored traditional values while embracing modern conveniences, creating possibilities that previous generations could never have imagined. The flight from Mumbai to Chicago felt like traveling between worlds. Priya clutched her new passport containing the freshly issued spousal visa, a document that represented months of paperwork, interviews, and anticipation. The engagement ceremony had proceeded flawlessly, with both families celebrating through video connection as traditional rituals were performed simultaneously across continents. Now, 3 months later, she was finally making the journey to begin her married life in America. Raj had arranged everything meticulously. He met her at O'Hare International Airport, holding a bouquet of roses and a welcome sign written in both English and Gujarati. His embrace felt warm and familiar, despite their limited physical interaction during the digital courtship. The Chicago skyline visible during their drive from the airport looked exactly as he had described. Towering glass buildings reflecting Lake Michigan's waters, creating a metropolitan landscape that dwarfed anything Priya had experienced in Mumbai. The apartment in Lincoln Park exceeded her expectations. Raj had furnished it thoughtfully, combining modern American aesthetics with Indian decorative elements that would help her feel at home. The kitchen contained familiar spices and cookware suitable for preparing traditional Gujarati meals. The living room featured photographs from their engagement ceremony alongside pictures of Chicago landmarks, symbolically merging their shared past with their American future. Their first weeks together felt like an extended honeymoon. Raj took vacation time from his corporate position to help Priya adjust to American life. They explored Chicago's Indian neighborhoods, particularly Devon Avenue, where shops sold everything from Bollywood movies to authentic street food ingredients. The community welcomed her warmly, with established immigrant families sharing advice about navigating American bureaucracy, finding employment, and maintaining cultural connections. Raj's social circle impressed Priya with their success and sophistication. His friends included engineers, doctors, and business owners who had built prosperous lives while preserving their Indian identity. Weekend gatherings featured elaborate potluck dinners where wives competed to prepare the most authentic regional dishes, while husbands discussed technology trends, investment strategies, and American political developments. For Priya, these events provided social integration and cultural continuity. The administrative aspects of establishing American residency proceeded smoothly. Raj accompanied her to social security offices, helped her open bank accounts, and guided her through the process of obtaining an Illinois driver's license. His familiarity with these procedures demonstrated the kind of practical knowledge that made immigrant life manageable. Having an established partner to navigate bureaucratic complexities felt invaluable for someone adjusting to an entirely new system. Professional opportunities emerged quickly. Raj's network included technology managers who recognized Priya's skills and offered consulting opportunities that could lead to permanent positions. Her background in mobile application development was particularly relevant to Chicago's growing startup ecosystem. Several companies expressed interest in sponsoring her for employment-based visa status, which would provide additional immigration security beyond her marriage-based documentation. The cultural adaptation challenged Priya in unexpected ways. Simple activities like grocery shopping required learning new brands, measurements, and shopping customs. American workplace dynamics differed significantly from Indian corporate culture, particularly regarding hierarchy, communication styles, and gender interactions. Raj provided patient guidance, sharing strategies he had developed during his own adjustment period years earlier. Religious observance remained important to both of them. They attended the Hindu Temple of Greater Chicago regularly, participating in festivals and cultural programs that connected them to their spiritual heritage. The temple community included families from across India, creating opportunities for Priya to build friendships with women who had made similar transitions from arranged marriages in India to successful American lives. However, subtle changes in Raj's behavior began emerging after the initial adjustment period ended. His work schedule became increasingly demanding, requiring longer hours and frequent travel that hadn't been mentioned during their courtship conversations. When Priya asked specific questions about his projects or colleagues, his responses grew vague and sometimes defensive. The detailed professional stories that had characterized their video calls were replaced by general statements about corporate responsibilities and client requirements. Financial discussions revealed discrepancies that troubled Priya. Despite his claims of substantial income and savings, their household budget seemed constrained in ways that didn't align with his previous descriptions of prosperity. When she offered to contribute her consulting earnings to shared expenses, Raj became uncomfortable, insisting that traditional wives shouldn't worry about money management while simultaneously expressing concern about mounting costs. The apartment, which had initially impressed her with its modern furnishings and prime location, began showing signs of financial strain. Raj mentioned temporary cash flow issues that prevented him from making planned purchases or taking the weekend trips he had promised during their engagement period. When bills arrived, he quickly collected them before Priya could examine the details, explaining that he preferred handling all financial responsibilities personally. Priya's attempts to establish independent friendships met with subtle resistance. Raj encouraged her participation in community events, but became uncomfortable when she developed close relationships with other women who might share information about their husbands' careers or financial situations. He preferred social interactions that he could monitor and control, limiting her exposure to conversations that might reveal inconsistencies in his professional narrative. The immigration status that had initially felt like security began resembling vulnerability. Priya's legal presence in America depended entirely on her marriage to Raj, creating a power dynamic that hadn't been apparent during their digital courtship. While she could theoretically pursue employment-based visa status, the process would require time and resources that kept her dependent on Raj's support during the transition period. Communication patterns shifted dramatically from their engagement period. The long, intimate conversations that had characterized their relationship were replaced by practical discussions about household matters and social obligations. When Priya tried to recreate the intellectual connection they had shared through video calls, Raj seemed distracted and impatient, preferring to watch television or engage with his phone rather than focus on deep conversation. Despite these emerging concerns, Priya rationalized the changes as normal adjustment challenges. Marriage always required compromise and adaptation, particularly when it involved international relocation and cultural integration. She told herself that the stress of supporting a new immigrant wife while maintaining his demanding career naturally created pressure that would diminish once they established stable routines. The Chicago winter arrived earlier than expected, bringing temperatures and weather conditions that shocked Priya's system. The physical discomfort of adapting to harsh climate, combined with her growing emotional uncertainty about her marriage, created a sense of isolation that she hadn't anticipated. The American dream that had seemed so appealing from Mumbai began feeling more complex and challenging than she had prepared herself to handle. As autumn transformed into winter, Priya found herself questioning whether the discrepancies between Raj's promises and their reality represented temporary difficulties or fundamental deceptions. The loving, attentive man she had married through video calls seemed increasingly distant and secretive, leaving her wondering whether she had made the biggest mistake of her life or simply needed more patience as they built their shared future together. The harsh Chicago winter intensified Priya's growing sense of isolation and confusion about her marriage. By February, the romantic gestures and attentive behavior that had characterized Raj's courtship had virtually disappeared, replaced by a pattern of evasiveness and control that she couldn't ignore. The man who had once spent hours discussing their shared dreams now dismissed her concerns with irritation and accused her of being ungrateful for the opportunities he had provided. Financial tensions escalated when Priya discovered unpaid bills hidden in a kitchen drawer. Credit card statements showed balances far exceeding what someone with Raj's claimed income could reasonably accumulate. When she confronted him about the debt, his reaction was explosive. He accused her of violating his privacy, questioned her right to examine his personal documents, and suggested that her Indian upbringing hadn't prepared her to understand American financial complexity. The corporate position that Raj had described so convincingly during their engagement appeared increasingly fictional. His work schedule made no sense for a senior software engineer at a Fortune 500 company. Some days he left the apartment before dawn and returned after midnight, claiming urgent project deadlines. Other weeks, he remained home for days, explaining that he was working remotely on classified projects that prohibited discussion. When Priya asked to meet his colleagues at company social events, he always had excuses about conflicting schedules or corporate policies that restricted family participation. Priya's attempts to verify Raj's employment independently revealed disturbing inconsistencies. The company he claimed to work for had no record of his employment when she called their general information line. His business cards, which she found in his wallet, contained phone numbers that led to disconnected voicemails. The office building where he supposedly worked was occupied by different companies that had never heard of him. Each discovery deepened her suspicion that his entire professional identity was fabricated. The immigrant community that had initially welcomed her began providing troubling insights about Raj's reputation. During a temple gathering, an older woman pulled Priya aside and whispered concerns about her husband's financial reliability. Other families mentioned unpaid debts, broken promises about business partnerships, and a pattern of elaborate stories that never materialized into concrete results. The social network that should have provided support instead became a source of embarrassment and anxiety. Raj's behavior toward Priya became increasingly controlling and manipulative. He monitored her phone calls, questioned her about conversations with family in India, and discouraged her from developing independent friendships. When she received job offers from technology companies, he convinced her to decline them by arguing that employment would complicate her immigration status and create unnecessary stress during their adjustment period. His persuasive arguments masked a deeper strategy to maintain her financial dependence and social isolation. The apartment that had initially impressed her revealed signs of financial instability that Raj had carefully concealed. Rent notices appeared sporadically, suggesting irregular payment patterns. Utility services were occasionally interrupted due to overdue bills, which Raj explained as administrative errors while quickly resolving the problems with borrowed money. The modern furnishings that had suggested prosperity were gradually revealed to be rental items or purchases made through credit arrangements that he couldn't sustain. Communication with her family in India became a source of additional stress. Priya felt pressure to maintain the illusion of successful adaptation while privately struggling with mounting evidence of deception. Her parents called regularly, expecting updates about her wonderful American life and Raj's successful career. She found herself repeating his fabricated stories, unwilling to admit that their carefully planned marriage might be built on lies that could destroy their family's reputation within their Mumbai community. The consulting opportunities that had seemed promising during her arrival disappeared, as Raj's network proved less reliable than advertised. Companies that had expressed interest in her skills either withdrew their offers unexpectedly or provided vague explanations about changing priorities. Priya began suspecting that Raj was sabotaging her professional prospects to maintain control over her circumstances, though she couldn't prove his interference directly. Legal vulnerabilities in her immigration status became increasingly apparent as their relationship deteriorated. Her presence in America depended entirely on her marriage to Raj, creating a power dynamic that he began exploiting more openly. When she threatened to contact immigration authorities about potential visa fraud, he reminded her that making false accusations could jeopardize her own legal status and result in deportation. The system that should have protected her instead trapped her in a relationship she no longer trusted. Winter isolation compounded her emotional distress. The harsh weather prevented her from exploring Chicago independently, while Raj's controlling behavior limited her social interactions to supervised community events where she couldn't speak freely about her concerns. The cultural adjustment that should have been exciting became overwhelming as she realized how dependent she was on a man whose honesty she increasingly questioned. Evidence of other victims began emerging through careful investigation. Priya discovered that Raj had maintained profiles on multiple matrimonial websites simultaneously, presenting slightly different versions of his professional background and personal circumstances. Screenshots saved on his computer showed conversations with other women that paralleled their own courtship, suggesting a systematic pattern of deception rather than isolated dishonesty about financial circumstances. The psychological impact of recognizing systematic manipulation devastated Priya's confidence and self-worth. She began questioning her judgment, wondering how she had missed obvious warning signs during their digital courtship. The shame of potential victimization, combined with fear of family disappointment, created emotional paralysis that prevented her from taking decisive action to protect herself. By late winter, Priya faced an impossible choice between remaining in a marriage built on deception or returning to India as a failed immigrant whose dreams had collapsed. Neither option offered dignity or security. Her American dream had transformed into a nightmare of financial instability, social isolation, and emotional manipulation that she felt powerless to escape. The man she had trusted with her future had systematically exploited her cultural expectations, immigration vulnerability, and family obligations to create a trap that seemed designed to prevent her from leaving. As spring approached, Priya realized that her survival might depend on finding the courage to expose Raj's deceptions and rebuild her life from the foundation he had deliberately undermined. The isolation and control that characterized her daily existence were about to intensify in ways she couldn't imagine, as Raj recognized that her growing awareness of his deceptions threatened the carefully constructed facade that enabled his predatory lifestyle. Spring's arrival in Chicago brought no relief to Priya's deteriorating situation. As the snow melted and the city emerged from winter's grip, her isolation intensified rather than diminished. Raj's behavior had grown increasingly erratic and controlling, suggesting that he sensed her growing awareness of his deceptions and was taking preemptive measures to prevent her from acting on her suspicions. The discovery of additional matrimonial profiles had shattered any remaining illusions about Raj's character. Late one evening, while he was in the shower, Priya accessed his laptop and found evidence that confirmed her worst fears. Browser history revealed ongoing conversations with multiple women across different platforms, each receiving variations of the same romantic promises and fabricated success stories that had originally attracted her. Screenshots showed him using different names, claiming various corporate positions, and even recycling the same photographs that had convinced her family of his legitimacy. Most disturbing was evidence of financial exploitation extending beyond their marriage. Email correspondence revealed that Raj had borrowed money from several women he had courted, always with promises of repayment that never materialized. Bank account screenshots showed deposits from multiple sources, suggesting a systematic pattern of romance-based fraud that had been operating for years before their engagement. Priya realized she wasn't just a victim, she was part of an ongoing criminal enterprise. When she attempted to confront Raj with this evidence, his reaction revealed a side of his personality that terrified her. The charming, persuasive man who had won her family's approval disappeared, replaced by someone capable of genuine menace. He accused her of spying, grabbed her wrist hard enough to leave bruises, and threatened consequences if she shared her discoveries with anyone. His eyes carried a coldness that made her understand, for the first time, that she might be in physical danger. The threat was reinforced through subtle but unmistakable intimidation tactics. Raj began monitoring her computer usage, installing software that tracked her online activity and recorded her communications. He confiscated her phone periodically for security updates that she suspected were actually surveillance installations. When she tried to contact family in India, he insisted on being present during calls, claiming concern about international charges while clearly monitoring her conversations for signs of disclosure. Priya's attempts to seek help revealed the sophisticated nature of Raj's manipulation and the extent of her vulnerability. The Indian community members who might have provided support had been carefully cultivated by Raj's fabricated reputation and his strategic presentations of their marriage as successful. When she tentatively approached other immigrant women about relationship concerns, their responses reflected the influence of Raj's networking. They reassured her that adjustment difficulties were normal and praised her luck in finding such a successful established husband. Legal resources proved equally challenging to access. Immigration attorneys she contacted explained that reporting marriage fraud could jeopardize her own visa status, potentially resulting in deportation, even if she was the victim rather than the perpetrator. The system designed to prevent fraudulent marriages offered little protection for genuine victims who discovered deception after the fact. Her legal presence in America remained entirely dependent on maintaining her marriage to the man who was systematically destroying her financial and emotional security. The psychological manipulation intensified as Raj recognized the threat posed by her knowledge. He alternated between explosive anger and manipulative affection, creating emotional confusion that made rational decision-making nearly impossible. During good periods, he would apologize for his behavior, blamed stress from work pressures, and promised to address their financial problems through upcoming business opportunities that always proved fictional. These reconciliation attempts were followed by escalated control and surveillance that reinforced her powerlessness. Financial abuse became more explicit as Raj abandoned any pretense of partnership. He refused to allow Priya access to bank accounts or credit cards, claiming that immigration regulations required careful management of their financial records. When she earned small amounts through freelance programming work, he immediately took control of the payments, explaining that proper tax reporting required his oversight. Her economic independence, already limited by immigration restrictions, was systematically eliminated. The apartment became a prison as Raj's paranoia about exposure intensified. He installed additional locks and security cameras, ostensibly for protection, but actually to monitor Priya's movements and visitors. He began working from home more frequently, claiming increased remote work flexibility, while actually ensuring constant supervision of her activities. The few social interactions she was permitted occurred under his direct observation, preventing any opportunity for private communication about her circumstances. Evidence mounted that Raj was escalating his criminal activities rather than scaling them back. New matrimonial profiles appeared with updated photographs and even more elaborate professional claims. Phone conversations she overheard suggested active courtships with multiple women, each being promised the same exclusive romantic attention that had once convinced her of his sincerity. The systematic nature of his operation indicated experience and planning that went far beyond opportunistic deception. Most alarmingly, Priya discovered research on her computer about spouse-related immigration fraud penalties and violence against immigrant women. Browser history showed searches for legal precedents involving domestic violence charges, deportation procedures for fraud victims, and criminal penalties for marriage-based immigration violations. The searches suggested that Raj was preparing for potential legal consequences while researching methods to prevent her from reporting his activities. The isolation that had begun as cultural adjustment had transformed into deliberate captivity designed to prevent exposure of criminal activities that extended far beyond their marriage. Priya recognized that her situation was deteriorating rapidly and that Raj's increasing desperation might lead to violence if he believed she posed a serious threat to his operation. Late one evening, while pretending to sleep, Priya overheard a phone conversation that confirmed her worst fears. Raj was discussing problem management with someone who seemed familiar with handling similar situations. The conversation included references to permanent solutions and cleanup procedures that suggested capabilities beyond financial fraud. She realized that her knowledge of his criminal activities had made her a liability that might require elimination. The next morning, Raj's behavior exhibited a forced normalcy that felt ominous rather than reassuring. He prepared her favorite breakfast, suggested a romantic dinner at home that evening, and mentioned wanting to discuss their future plans. His excessive attention felt like preparation rather than affection, creating the impression that he was setting the stage for something that would require careful presentation to avoid suspicion. Priya understood that she had reached a critical moment where action was necessary for survival, but her options remained severely limited by legal vulnerability, social isolation, and physical control that Raj had systematically established. The romantic dinner he was planning felt like it might be intended as something far more sinister than reconciliation. The romantic dinner Raj proposed for that Friday evening felt ominous rather than loving to Priya's heightened senses. Throughout the day, his behavior exhibited an unsettling combination of excessive attentiveness and barely concealed tension. He spent unusual effort shopping for ingredients, claiming he wanted to prepare all her favorite Gujarati dishes as a special surprise. When she offered to help with cooking, he insisted that she relax while he handled everything personally, a departure from their usual shared meal preparation that heightened her anxiety. Priya used the afternoon to make desperate preparations of her own. While Raj was occupied in the kitchen, she managed to send a cryptic email to her closest friend in Mumbai, using coded language they had developed during college to communicate concerns without explicit disclosure. She wrote about feeling homesick for real Indian food and missing honest conversations with people who knew her before marriage. Phrases that would alert her friend to serious problems without triggering suspicion if Raj monitored her communications. The apartment filled with aromatic spices as Raj prepared an elaborate feast that included every dish Priya had mentioned enjoying during their courtship. Dokla, undiyu, and shrikhand appeared alongside perfectly seasoned dal and fresh rotis. The effort was impressive, but Priya noticed his hands shaking slightly as he cooked and observed him frequently checking his phone for messages that seemed to increase his agitation rather than provide reassurance. As evening approached, Raj's forced cheerfulness became more pronounced and less convincing. He opened a bottle of wine, unusual since they rarely drank alcohol, and insisted they toast to their new beginning together. When Priya hesitated, he became insistent, explaining that the wine was specially selected to complement the Indian spices and that refusing would insult his efforts to create a memorable evening. Dinner began with Raj being unusually talkative, reminiscing about their early video calls and expressing regret for the stress they had experienced during her adjustment to American life. He spoke about plans for the future, including potential trips to India, and his intentions to be a better husband who deserved her trust and loyalty. The conversation felt rehearsed rather than spontaneous, as if he was working through a prepared script rather than expressing genuine emotions. Priya ate cautiously, paying careful attention to tastes and textures while pretending to enjoy the meal enthusiastically. The food seemed normal initially, but she began noticing a slight bitter aftertaste in several dishes that didn't align with the expected spice combinations. When she commented on the unusual flavor, Raj quickly explained that he had experimented with new spice blends purchased from a specialty Indian store, deflecting her concerns while encouraging her to continue eating. Approximately 30 minutes into the meal, Priya began experiencing symptoms that confirmed her worst suspicions. Mild dizziness progressed to nausea, followed by difficulty focusing her vision and increasing weakness in her limbs. The progression was gradual enough to seem like sudden illness initially, but the combination of symptoms and their timing relative to the meal made the cause unmistakable to someone who had spent weeks fearing exactly this scenario. Raj's reaction to her distress was telling. Rather than expressing surprise or immediately calling for medical assistance, he watched her carefully while asking detailed questions about her symptoms that seemed designed to assess the effectiveness of whatever substance he had administered. When she requested water, he provided it reluctantly and seemed disappointed that she wasn't deteriorating more rapidly. Despite her weakening condition, Priya managed to excuse herself to the bathroom, where she forced herself to vomit as much of the contaminated food as possible. The effort was partially successful, but she could feel the substance continuing to affect her system. Using her remaining strength and clarity, she activated a voice recording app on her phone and hid it in her clothing, hoping to capture evidence of what was happening. When she returned to the dining room, Raj's facade had dropped significantly. He no longer bothered maintaining the pretense of concern and instead watched her with clinical detachment as her condition worsened. When she accused him directly of poisoning her, he initially denied involvement, but his lack of surprise or outrage confirmed her suspicions. His primary concern seemed to be timing, whether her deterioration was progressing according to his expectations. The conversation that followed, captured on her hidden recording device, revealed the full extent of Raj's criminal mindset and his specific intentions regarding Priya. He admitted that her knowledge of his matrimonial fraud operation had made her continued existence problematic, particularly since her immigrant status and financial dependence had failed to ensure her permanent silence. He explained that her death would be attributed to complications from food allergies that he had carefully documented in their medical records. Raj's plan was sophisticatedly cruel. He had researched her family's medical history and identified allergies that could plausibly cause fatal reactions. The substance he had used was designed to mimic severe allergic shock, creating symptoms that would support his narrative of accidental death during a romantic dinner. His performance as a grieving widower would generate sympathy rather than suspicion, while her death would eliminate the threat she posed to his ongoing criminal activities. As Priya's condition continued deteriorating, she realized that her survival depended on actions she could take before losing consciousness completely. Despite her weakening state, she managed to send an emergency text message to the friend in Mumbai who had received her earlier coded email, providing her exact address and a brief description of being poisoned. She also activated the location sharing feature on her phone, ensuring that her whereabouts could be tracked if necessary. Raj discovered her phone activity and became enraged, realizing that his carefully planned scenario was being compromised by her preparation and resistance. His anger revealed the full extent of his psychopathic personality as he described the other women he had eliminated when they became inconvenient to his operations. Priya understood that she was not his first victim and would not be his last unless his pattern was interrupted by exposure and prosecution. The final phase of Raj's plan involved staging the discovery of her body and his subsequent call to emergency services. He intended to wait until she lost consciousness, then create evidence of his attempts to help her during what would appear to be a medical crisis. His performance would be convincing because he had practiced it with previous victims, perfecting his portrayal of a devoted husband faced with unexpected tragedy. However, Priya's emergency communications had triggered responses that Raj had not anticipated. The friend in Mumbai had immediately contacted Chicago police, providing enough information to justify a welfare check at their apartment. When officers arrived, they found Priya conscious but critically ill, with her hidden recording device containing evidence of attempted murder that would ultimately lead to Raj's arrest and conviction. The investigation that followed revealed the full scope of Raj's matrimonial fraud operation and the multiple victims who had suffered financial and physical harm through his systematic deception. Priya's courage in documenting evidence despite mortal danger had not only saved her own life, but also provided justice for other women who had been silenced permanently by the man who had promised them the American dream while delivering only exploitation and death.